this is the weekly tip for Painless Financial Learning, and we are at tip 3 of 3 about meal expenses. So if you missed the other 2 weeks ago we talked about how you could take a deduction if you're out of town on business. Last week we talked about how you could take a deduction if you're in town but you're entertaining someone who is of use to your business. The focus of this week's tip is documentation. In order to take any deduction, you have to be able to prove that you are the person who spent the money. You have to have a receipt that shows who you paid the money to, how much it was, what their address is, what the date was, what their HST number is, all of those things. If you're hoping to take a deduction by having restaurant name come up on your Visa statement every month, that isn't going to work if you get audited. The auditor wants to see both the receipt for the list of what you ate and the credit card receipt that should be stapled to that. So the statement, Visa statement, could replace the credit card receipt being stapled to it, but it does not replace the list of the expenses that you are supposed to have. So don't ever pay cash for any business expense, but don't ever pay cash for a meal. Because if you do that, you don't have a receipt. If you don't have a receipt, you don't get the deduction. Also, you have to keep track of who you were with. Now that doesn't sound complicated, except that when CRA decides they want to ask you this question and they have their bright white light shining in your face, it's going to have been a couple of years since you had this meal. They don't typically audit you right away. So if your appointment book doesn't give you a clue, it would be good if you had written something down. So typically, you had lunch with your accountant, with your lawyer, with your banker, whatever, you know what was discussed, or you could make something up easily. But if the name of the person you had lunch with doesn't mean anything to you because they were a potential customer or a potential supplier, then you're going to feel bad that you didn't write down a few notes. Because without there being documentation of the business purpose of that meal, you won't get the deduction. So take a look at all these tips. Number 1 was how to deduct things if you're out of town. Number 2 was what to do if you're in town and wanted to get a deduction. And this one gives you the documentation you need to make sure you're getting all your meal receipts. Thanks.